I've been a patrol officer for about 9 years now, and like most cops who work nights, I've responded to my share of strange calls. You deal with a lot of routine things, noise complaints, domestic disputes, drunk drivers, but every once in a while there's a call that sticks with you long after your shift ends. This happened about 3 years ago during a winter night shift. It was around 1:30 in the morning when dispatch sent me to check on a welfare call. A woman had dialed 911 and reported hearing someone crying for help from inside the house next door. According to her, it sounded like a young girl. The strange part was that the house she was talking about had supposedly been empty for months. The owners were away working overseas. When dispatch tried calling the number back that the woman provided, she suddenly stopped answering. That made things even stranger. I was only a few blocks away, so I told dispatch I'd head over and check it out. Another unit started toward my location, but they were about 15 minutes out. The neighborhood itself was quiet and fairly normal. Small two-story homes, clean yards, the kind of place where nothing really happens. When I pulled onto the street, everything was dark except for one porch light halfway down the block. The house in question was near the end of the street. Right away, something felt off. The driveway was empty, which matched what dispatch said about the owners being gone. But the front door was slightly open, just enough for the wind to push it back and forth against the frame. I parked my cruiser, stepped out, and walked up the path with my flashlight. As I got closer, I could hear the door creaking softly. I announced myself before stepping onto the porch. "Police department." No answer. I knocked twice on the door frame, then pushed the door open slowly. The inside of the house was completely dark. I stepped into the living room and swept my flashlight across the walls. The place was mostly empty. Furniture was covered with white sheets like the owners had prepared the house before leaving town. Dust floated in the beam of my flashlight. But then I heard something. It was faint, a soft sound that almost blended with the wind outside. Crying. It sounded like a little girl crying somewhere deeper inside the house. I immediately radioed dispatch and told them I had possible occupants inside the residence and that I was going to check the interior. The crying stopped the moment I said that. The silence that followed was heavy. I moved slowly through the living room and into the hallway. Every step echoed on the hardwood floor. The hallway led to the kitchen and a staircase that went up to the second floor. As I reached the base of the stairs, I heard the crying again. This time, it was definitely coming from upstairs. It was quiet but clear, a child's voice. I called out telling whoever was up there that I was a police officer and that they needed to come downstairs. No response, just a crying. I started up the staircase. The steps creaked under my weight, and the entire time that crying continued somewhere above me. When I reached the top, the hallway was pitch black. My flashlight revealed 3 doors. 2 of them were closed. One of them at the very end of the hall was slightly open. The crying was coming from that room. I approached slowly and pushed the door open with my foot. It was a small bedroom. There was no furniture in it except for an old mattress leaning against the wall. The crying stopped immediately when the door opened. I swept the room with my flashlight. No one was there. The window was closed and locked from the inside. I checked the closet. Empty. For a moment, I just stood there trying to understand what I had heard. That's when I heard something behind me. A soft sound, like someone whispering. It came from the hallway. I turned around and aimed my flashlight toward the door. The hallway was empty, but at the far end, near the staircase, I saw something move. It looked like a small shape quickly ducking out of sight. My first thought was that a kid had been hiding and ran, so I moved quickly back into the hallway and headed toward the stairs. When I reached the top of the staircase, I stopped. The front door downstairs was still open and cold air was drifting into the house, but the living room was empty. There was nowhere someone could have gone without me seeing them. I started down the stairs anyway. Halfway down, I heard the crying again, but this time it wasn't upstairs. It was coming from right behind me. I spun around and shined my light up the staircase. At the top step, just outside the bedroom I had cleared, I saw the outline of a small figure standing there. It looked like a child, long hair hanging down over its face, completely still. For a second, I thought maybe the girl had been hiding somewhere I missed, so I called up to her and told her to come down the stairs. She didn't move. She just stood there. Then slowly she tilted her head and the crying started again. Only now it sounded different, deeper, almost like the sound was coming from several voices at once. My radio suddenly crackled and dispatch asked for my status. I looked down to answer. When I looked back up, the stair tanks was empty. The figure was gone. I ran back upstairs and cleared every room again. Closets, bathrooms, under the mattress, every corner of that floor. There was no one there. Backup arrived a few minutes later and we searched the entire house together. No signs of forced entry, no footprints in the snow outside, nothing. But the strangest part came later. When detectives contacted the homeowners, they told us something they hadn't mentioned before. About 10 years ago, the family that lived in the house before them had a daughter. She disappeared one night without any explanation. Police searched the neighborhood for weeks but never found her. Her bedroom had been the same one at the end of the hallway, the one with the mattress against the wall. I've been back to that street several times since then on patrol. Most nights it looks like any other house. Quiet, dark, normal. But every once in a while when I drive past, I swear I can see someone standing in the upstairs window. A small figure, just watching the street.